the value of an organization is the sum of the decisions it makes and implements. Now, after all those years and after 3 degrees, if I had to sum up what I've learned about business, it would be that one sentence. And it's not by accident that those words are on the back of my business card, which you have in front of me, which you have in front of you. So the value of an organization is the sum of the decisions it makes and implements. Caleb, do you have the clicker? Oh, okay, yep, no worries. So that's just the forward button. Beautiful. Oh, no. Sorry, which, yep, that one. Okay, great. So there it is. And value of an organization is the sum of the decisions it makes and implements. And there it is. It's also on the back of the business card. Now, why I'm saying that and asking you to read it there and also look at it on the business card is people absorb information in different ways. Some are comfortable to hear it. Some like to read it. If you're a lawyer, yeah, I'll read that. Some like to have something tangible. So just one of my tips, it's always good to communicate in several ways. Now, just on that theme as well, if there are any engineers, scientists, mathematicians in the room, I've even developed a formula. Now, for some of you, you'll glaze over. You'll glaze over. So ignore it. If it appeals to you, you'll know what it means. I won't distract you further on that one. So the value of an organization is the sum of the decisions it makes and implements. Now, let's just picture a situation. There's a log floating in the middle of a lake, and there are 13 frogs sitting on it. One of the frogs decides it's going to jump in the lake. How many frogs are left on the log? There are 13. Catherine understands. So the frog has decided, but hasn't actually jumped in. So for all of you here, you got it right. Not only did you decide to come along today, but you actually did something about it and you got here. There were no doubt those who decided, yeah, they're coming along, but they didn't make it. So I'd like to think from today there will be a little bit of a value add from that decision which you implemented. Now I'm going to just do something, just a little exercise now. Now picture all of us there, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 of us. 8 of us have all been on an advanced driver training course. We've been on it for weeks. We've attended lectures. We've done practical sessions. Now the day is arriving and we're feeling very confident. We're really feeling confident. We've got to know each other, respective driving abilities. And today's the day of the test. So I'm going to ask you, and just write it on the back of the business card there. Rank yourself in this group, position 1 to 8. 1 being you finished top of the class, 8 you're in 8th place. Just write down a number as to where you think, based on this group, you've all been doing exactly the same thing, where you reckon you'll come. Just write it down. Just write down number 1, anything between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8. Are we done? There's no trick in this, just do it. Okay, thank you for that. And just put that to your side. Not too much pondering. This is decide and implement, please. Let's move on. So now to do with decision making and improving decision making, the key is to really understand what the 2 key contributors are to poor decision making. So what are the 2 key contributors to poor decision making? And those are, in the first instance, inadequate motivation. And the second aspect are what is known as cognitive biases. Cognitive biases, let's just call them biases. Things that we all have. Now, I'm going to deal with motivation first. And because there are not too many of us, I'm going to ask you really very quickly You can write this on the front of the card. Just 3 words. Just think of 3 words, any 3 words with regard to motivation, and think in the context of other people's motivation, the people that work for you or the people that you lead. Just 3 words. What are the things that you, and if you can't think of 3, that's fine. Just write down a couple of words, no more than 3, as to what you think motivates them. You leading them, what motivates them. We'll come back to that. Just tell me when you're done. Because we're going to be focusing on the 3 aspects of motivation. Has anyone heard of Daniel Pink? Yeah. Daniel Pink. Okay. So Pink, yeah, Daniel Pink. You can Google him, look him up. Well worth doing. Now, Daniel Pink talks about 3 things, and I'm going to list them in order, but they're all equally relevant. Purpose, mastery, and autonomy. Purpose, mastery, and autonomy. So starting on purpose. Purpose is, in a business context, is why do you do what you do, and how is that important to your customers? Why do you do what you do, and how is that important to your customers? Starting with why is Simon Sinek. Have you heard of Simon? Simon Sinek start with why. Start with why. If you've seen any of his stuff, his 3 circles, it's no accident. That's why my logo is like that. Start with why. So purpose is why do you do what you do, and why is that important to your customers? And in a business context, it's very important to tie it back to your customer, because otherwise, if you stop short of why or how is it important to your customer, you're really talking about a hobby. And we talk about it in a business environment here. Tie it back to the importance to your customers. And talking about Simon Sinek, there's a story. There's a guy down a hole digging madly. Someone appears in the top, said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he says, "I'm building the foundation to a cathedral." Now that's the sort of classic example of purpose. He's got his purpose clear. He's not, "I'm just digging a hole." That's what he's doing. The purpose is clear. So whether that's an urban legend or not, I'm not too sure, but I think it describes it. It describes it well. Tying things back to your customer is really important, because in a business, there are really only 2 jobs. The people that serve the customers, and the people that serve the people that serve the customers. So in a business context, that's really very important. And because, of course, you've got your internal and external customers. External customers are those outside your traditional customer base, but you've got people in the organization who their customers are the internal customers. They might not actually interact with the external customer, but it comes back to that same question. Why do you do what you do, and how is it important to your customers? So there are a couple of aspects there. You know. Work out your purpose, where you fit into the organization. And it's important that each person within the organization asks that very question. And keep asking it. Keep asking why. Why, Dad? Why, Mom? Just like a kid does. Just ask it several times. You'll get to the heart of the question and the real answer. So it's all about where people fit in to the organization and the value that they bring to the organization. The next aspect, remember there's purpose first. Second aspect is mastery. Now, mastery is are the tools, the techniques, the technology, the systems, the skills, the support that you need to master what you do. And clearly the absence of those is demotivating. I guess you could just say they're the necessities. If you don't have the tools, techniques, training, technology, systems, support to master what you do, you won't be motivated. Next comes autonomy. That's the third aspect of motivation. That's where people get this from their own perspective. They get the importance of autonomy. You know, I know what to do. My purpose is clear. I've got the tools to do what I do. I've got the training and all that sort of stuff. Now, just let me get on with what I do. Grant me the autonomy, please, and I'll be off. Strangely enough, when people are in a leadership position, one of the things they struggle with the most is granting the autonomy, allowing the people to get on with it. Autonomy is much like trust. Trust needn't be earned. You've got to show trust, and in showing trust, you will receive it in return. As a leader, it's up to you to demonstrate trust in your people. So grant them the autonomy to get on with what they want to do. After all, you've set the purpose, you've equipped them with the mastery to do it. So don't shoot yourself in the foot and fail to grant them the autonomy. Crucially important. So to sum up, there are 3 elements to motivation, and they all work together: purpose, mastery, and autonomy. And it's your responsibility to set the purpose, ensure people have the mastery to do what they do, and then to grant the autonomy to let them get on with it. Right, now, that's the one aspect of what contributes to poor decision making, which is motivation. The other aspect are what are called cognitive biases. Now, I learned something quite recently. It's a saying: if you have a brain, you have biases. So if you're claiming you have no biases, well, the conclusion is obvious. Biases are the things, in many cases, that you're actually not aware of. They're your blind spots. So it's actually quite difficult to diagnose them yourself. Others are more likely to pick them up, but not always, not always. And I'll give an example shortly. So a couple of examples of cognitive bias are, for example, status quo bias. And one way of checking yourself if you're suffering from status quo bias is to ask the question: if the status quo were not the status quo, would you choose that option from the range of all the options available? So ask yourself that question if you think you or others might be suffering from status quo bias. Another one is escalation of commitment. This is the good old pouring good money after bad. So because you've invested time, effort, and resources in a particular cause, somehow you justify that throwing more at it is going to turn it around, even if it's clear that that won't help. There's some bizarre thinking, some bias that goes on where people do that, and it happens often. Another one is regency, and this is where we accept without question the opinion of the most senior person in the room or the so-called expert. Now, the tip here is if you are in that position, the regent, queen, king, you need to be really aware of this so that in a situation, in a room, and particularly the chair of a meeting should encourage the opinion of the most junior or perhaps the quietest person in the room first, and then work the way up until you give your opinion. Because otherwise, if you give your opinion first, if you're the expert, then that's the opinion that everyone just nods and goes along with. So being aware of that bias is really important, particularly if you're in a leadership position or you're in an expert position, and really good chairs get that right. Overconfidence bias is where we overestimate our skills relative to others. And this might be a good time for you to just hand me your, in fact, before you do the cards, just write your initial or do a smiley face that you can recognize. I'll give them back to you. If you can just hand those in, just pop them over here if you don't mind, Peter. We'll, yeah, just all in a little pile here. I'll get to that. Only distract you too much there. Now, I've mentioned a whole bunch of biases. Now, those together can combine in a group situation where you have what's known as groupthink. And groupthink is all too common in corporate in the corporate world, where a group of people, very clever people, often, who should know better, become blind to reality. Yeah, there we go. They actually honestly start believing their own BS. So convinced are they of their position. And this occurs when the company or the organization has had a history of success, often in spite of themselves, but they've been successful. In situations where there's little debate about the issues, yeah, don't worry about that, you know, we're not going to talk about that, we talk about how good we are. Which comes to the next one, self-adulation. Gee, we're good. We are the biggest organization in the world. We've got offices all around the world, including the universe and the moon. There's no self-criticism. Yeah, there we go. There's no, absolutely no self-criticism, where the way we do things around here is never questioned. It's just the way we do it. Where conflicting information and other opinions are dismissed almost as heresy. Don't go there. That's confirmation bias, by the way. And all of that while change is occurring all around. And there are many instances where groupthink has had disastrous results. Often when talking about groupthink, the examples are given about the oil rig that blew up in Gulf of Mexico, or the space shuttle that blew up. Yeah, those may be examples, but often it's in a corporate environment where, and the Kodak one is probably a case in point, where they convince themselves that that's the way it is, it's always been good, and we're right. Yeah, don't worry about those guys. We're right. We know better. Yes. Absolutely right. You're on the button. Those are the examples. And at the end of the day, be wary of believing your own BS. Now, how to combat biases? It is difficult because they are blind spots. So individually, it can be challenging. But being aware of the symptoms and asking those questions, for example, the ones I gave you about status quo, assists in combating those biases. But also a well-balanced team, one that thinks diversely, thinking diversely, and by the way, gender diversity is no guarantee or antidote to thinking diversity. So thinking diversely is really important, and actually cultural diversity is a much better contributor to thinking diversity than, for example, gender diversity. But it's really just important that you have a group of people who think diversely. And that's where a lot of these tests, for example, Belbin team role profiles, if any of you are aware of that, those are very good. You've got disc profiling and print, and there are a whole lot of them. I believe those tests, don't like to call them tests, but they are a great using those to develop that cognitive diversity is really useful. Now, perhaps this is where we should see whether our group suffers from overconfidence bias or not. Has someone got a calculator here? Just on the phone, can you do me a favor here and just add up 8, 1. I'm not telling you who said these. 1, 4, 1, and 4. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Who? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Caleb, did you chip in? So who hasn't? That's not a spare one. Nope. I'm not counting me yet. We've got. Is there not one missing? There's. I've got 6. Anyway, let's take 6. So 19 divided by 6 is 19 divided by 6 is okay. So 3.17. So given that the midpoint of 6 is, no, not 3. Because if you're 3, there's only position 1 and 2 ahead of you, but you've got 4, 5, and 6 below. So it's 3.5. 3.5 would be the midpoint. So this group, on average, has rated themselves as better than average. So as a group, you suffer from overconfidence bias because clearly, because it was only this group of people, not the whole world, only this group of people, and you're all together doing the same course, but somehow on average, you believe you're better than average, which clearly can't happen.
Is it a bias that you can justify? Johnny Wilkinson, for example, and he's standing in front of rugby players, and he says, you know what, the average person is going to kick a rugby ball through those posts 50% of the time. And he says, well, I'll kick it through.
But that's Johnny Wilkinson. This example was all of you in this room, all on the same course, and relative to this group of people, not the bigger group. There we go. On average. So a couple of you might be right, but all of you together aren't right. Because if you were, it would be exactly 3.5. And I've still got to find out.
This is for advanced driving.
Yeah, but advanced driving in all driving conditions around. And by the way, if I'd mentioned that Daniel Ricciardo failed this test, would that have affected your rating? If on the way here you'd perhaps had an accident and I'd asked the same question, would that have affected how you scored yourself? There we go. Yeah, well, there we go. But there we go. So we have proven that this group, at least, suffers from overconfidence bias. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do very, very quickly is just with the motivators. And bear in mind purpose, mastery, and autonomy. So achievement, I'm just going through some of the words here. Achievement, success, finance, recognition. So achievements, success, finance, and recognition probably fall into a bit of purpose, a bit of mastery, because you need a bit of cash to do what you do. It's a tool. It's a tool. Recognition, yeah, it's a purpose for sure. We've got money, yep. Recognition, fun. I think, yeah, money again, I'd say is a tool. The lack of it is going to be a problem. So it's pretty important. Recognition, yeah, I think that's getting towards purpose and fun. Yeah, but fun, nothing wrong with that. Value add, contribution, yep. That's purpose. Love, growth, purpose. Money, more than money, yeah, there we go. So that's a bit purpose. That's not just money, helping, vision, certainly purpose. Team, relationship, achievement. Good. Put team over there. Looking good, control, feeling good. I think there's purpose there. But what was missing here, and remember I said, think about it from the perspective of people you're leading. No autonomy in any of these, or any word. Perhaps team might be the closest, but autonomy missing a little bit. Now, if I'd asked that same question about what motivates you, I reckon there would have been a few autonomies or words to that effect thrown in here. So there's a takeaway. What motivates you and what motivates others is largely fairly similar. So in closing, I'll say to you the value of an organization is the sum of the decisions it makes and implements. And from your personal perspective, I'll say, or ask you to ask of yourself, is your value the sum of the decisions you make and implement? Thank you.